atheist, began in 1931. It is a matter of debate whether my lack of belief in the existence of an omnipresent, omniscient God is due to my arrogant pride and vanity. It never occurred to me that sometime in the future I would be involved in polemics of this kind. As a result of some discussions with my friends, I have realized that after having known me for a little time only, some of them have reached a kind of hasty conclusion about me that my atheism is my foolishness and that it is the outcome of my vanity. Even then it is a serious problem. I do not boast of being above these human follies. I am, after all, a human being and nothing more. And no one can claim to be more than that. I have a weakness in my personality, for pride is one of the human traits that I do possess. I am known as a dictator among my friends. Sometimes I am called a boaster. Some have always been complaining that I am bossy, and I force others to accept my opinion. Yes, it is true to some extent. I do not deny this charge. We can use the word vainglory for it. As far as the contemptible, obsolete, rotten values of our society are concerned, I am an extreme skeptic. But this question does not concern my person alone. It is being proud of my ideas, my thoughts. It cannot be called empty pride. Pride, or you may use the word vanity, both mean an exaggerated assessment of one's personality. Is my atheism because of unnecessary pride, or have I ceased believing in God after thinking long and deep on the matter? I wish to put my ideas before you. First of all, let us differentiate between pride and vanity, as these are two different things. I have never been able to understand how unfounded, baseless pride or empty vanity can hinder a person from believing in God. I may refuse to acknowledge the greatness of a really great person only when I have got fame without doing any serious efforts, or when I lack the superior mental powers necessary to become great. It is easy to understand, but how is it possible that a believer can turn into a non-believer because of his vanity? Only two things are possible. Either a man deems himself to be in possession of godly qualities, or he goes a step further and declares himself to be a god. In both these states of mind, he cannot be an atheist in the true sense of the word. In the first case, it is not an outright rejection of God's existence. In the other, he is affirming the existence of some kind of supernatural power responsible for the working of the universe. It does not harm our argument whether he claims to be a god, or considers God to be a reality in existence above his own being. The real point, however, is that in both cases he is a theist, a believer. He is not an atheist. I want to bring home this point to you. I am not one of these two creeds. I totally reject the existence of an omnipresent, all-powerful, all-knowing God. Why so? I will discuss it later in the essay. Here I wish to emphasize that I am not an atheist for the reason that I am arrogant or proud or vain. Nor am I a demigod, nor a prophet. No, nor am I God myself. At least one thing is true, that I have not evolved this thought because of vanity or pride. In order to answer this question, I relate the truth. My friends say that after Delhi bombing and the Hawk conspiracy case, I rocketed to fame, and that this fact has turned my head. Let us discuss why this allegation is incorrect. I did not give up my belief in God after these incidents. I was an atheist even when I was an unknown figure. At least a college student cannot cherish any sort of exaggerated notion of himself that may lead him to atheism. It is true that I was a favorite with some college teachers, but others did not like me. I was never a hard-working or studious boy. I never got an opportunity to be proud. I was very careful in my behavior and somewhat pessimistic about my future career. I was not completely atheistic in my beliefs. I was brought up under the care and protection of my father. He was a staunch Arya Samaji. An Arya Samaji can be anything but never an atheist. After my elementary education, I was sent to DAV College, Lahore. I lived in the boarding house for 1 year. Besides prayers early in the morning and at dusk time, I sat for hours and chanted religious mantras. At that time, I was a staunch believer. Then I lived with my father. He was a tolerant man in his religious views. It is due to his teachings that I devoted my life for the cause of liberating my country. But he was not an atheist. His God was an all-pervading entity. He advised me to offer my prayers every day. In this way I was brought up. In the non-cooperation days, I got admission to the National College. During my stay in this college, I began thinking over all the religious polemics such that I grew skeptical about the existence of God. In spite of this fact, I can say that my belief in God was firm and strong. I grew a beard and gaze. In spite of this, I could not convince myself of the efficacy of Sikh religion or any religion at all, for that matter. But I had an unswerving, unwavering belief in God. Then I joined the Revolutionary Party. The first leader I met had not the courage to openly declare himself an atheist. He was unable to reach any conclusion on this point. Whenever I asked him about the existence of God, he gave me this reply: "You may believe in him when you feel like it." The second leader with whom I came in contact was a firm believer. I should mention his name. It was our respected comrade Sachinder Nath Sanyal. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in connection with Karachi conspiracy case. Right from the first page of his only book, Vanity, he sings praises to the glory of God. See the last page of the second part of this book, and you find praises showered upon God in the way of a mystic. It is a clear reflection of his thoughts. According to the prosecution, the revolutionary leaflet which was distributed throughout India was the outcome of Sachinder Nath Sanyal's intellectual labor. So often it happens that in revolutionary activities a leader expresses his own ideas which may be very dear to him, but in spite of having differences, the other workers have to acquiesce in them. In that leaflet, One full paragraph was devoted to the praises of God and his doings, which we, human beings, cannot understand. This is sheer mysticism. What I want to point out is that the idea of denying the existence of God did not even occur to the Revolutionary Party. The famous Khakri martyrs, all four of them, passed their last day in prayers. Rampashad Bismal was a staunch Arya-Samaji. In spite of his vast studies in socialism and communism, Rajendra Iyer could not suppress his desire to recite hymns from Upanishads and Gita. There was but only one person among them who did not indulge in such activities. He used to say, religion is the outcome of human weakness or the limitation of human knowledge. He is also in prison for life. But he also never dared to deny the existence of God. Till that time I was only a romantic revolutionary, just a follower of our leaders. Then came the time to shoulder the whole responsibility. For some time, a strong opposition put the very existence of the party into danger. Many leaders as well as many enthusiastic comrades began to uphold the party to ridicule. They jeered at us. I had an apprehension that someday I would also consider it a futile and hopeless task. It was a turning point in my revolutionary career. An incessant desire to study filled my heart. Study more and more, said I to myself, so that I might be able to face the arguments of my opponents. Study to support your point of view with convincing arguments. And I began to study in a serious manner. My previous beliefs and convictions underwent a radical change. The romance of militancy dominated our predecessors. Now serious ideas ousted this way of thinking. No more mysticism. No more blind faith. Now realism was our mode of thinking. At times of terrible necessity, we can resort to extreme methods, but violence produces opposite results in mass movements. I have talked much about our methods. The most important thing was a clear conception of our ideology, for which we were waging a long struggle. As there was no election activity going on, I got ample opportunity to study various ideas propounded by various writers. I studied Bakunin, the anarchist leader. I read a few books of Marx, the father of communism. I also read Lenin and Trotsky and many other writers who successfully carried out revolutions in their countries. All of them were atheists. The ideas contained in Bakunin's God and State seem inconclusive, but it is an interesting book. After that I came across a book, Common Sense by Lambaswamy. His point of view was a sort of mystical atheism. I developed more interest in this subject. By the end of 1926, I was convinced that the belief in an almighty, supreme being who created, guided and controlled the universe had no sound foundations. I began discussions on this subject with my friends. I had openly declared myself an atheist. What it meant will be discussed in the following lines. In May 1927, I was arrested in Lahore. This arrest came as a big surprise for me. I had not the least idea that I was wanted by the police. I was passing through a garden, and all of a sudden the police surrounded me. To my own surprise, I was very calm at that time. I was in full control of myself. I was taken into police custody. The next day I was taken to the railway police lockup, where I spent a whole month. After many days' conversation with police personnel, I guessed that they had some information about my connection with the Kakri party. I felt they had some intelligence of my other activities in the revolutionary movement. They told me that I was in Lucknow during the Kakri party trials so that I might devise a scheme to rescue the culprits. They also said that after the plan had been approved, we procured some bombs, and by way of test, one of those bombs was thrown into a crowd on the occasion of Dussehra in 1926. They offered to release me on condition that I gave a statement on the activities of the Revolutionary Party. In this way I would be set free and even rewarded, and I would not be produced as an approver in the court. I could not help laughing at their proposals. It was all humbug. People who have ideas like ours do not throw bombs at their own innocent people. One day, Mr. Newman, the then senior superintendent of CID, came to me. After a long talk which was full of sympathetic words, he imparted to me what he considered to be sad news, that if I did not give any statement as demanded by them, they would be forced to send me up for trial for conspiracy to wage war in connection with Kakri case, and also for brutal killings in Dussehra gathering. After that he said that he had sufficient evidence to get me convicted and hanged. I was completely innocent, but I believed that the police had sufficient power to do it if they desired it to be so. The same day some police officers persuaded me to offer my prayers to God 2 times regularly. I was an atheist. I thought that I would settle it to myself whether I could brag only in days of peace and happiness that I was an atheist, or in those hard times I could be steadfast in my convictions. After a long debate with myself, I reached the conclusion that I could not even pretend to be a believer, nor could I offer my prayers to God. No, I never did it. It was time of trial, and I would come out of it successful. These were my thoughts. Never for a moment did I desire to save my life. So I was a true atheist then, and I am an atheist now. It was not an easy task to face that ordeal. Beliefs make it easier to go through hardships, even make them pleasant. Man can find a strong support in God and an encouraging consolation in His name. If you have no belief in Him, then there is no alternative but to depend upon yourself. It is not child's play to stand firm on your feet amid storms and strong winds. In difficult times, vanity, if it remains, evaporates, and man cannot find the courage to defy beliefs held in common esteem by the people. If he really revolts against such beliefs, we must conclude that it is not sheer vanity. He has some kind of extraordinary strength. This is exactly the situation now. First of all, we all know what the judgment will be. It is to be pronounced in a week or so. I am going to sacrifice my life for a cause. What more consolation can there be? A God-believing Hindu may expect to be reborn a king. A Muslim or a Christian might dream of the luxuries he hopes to enjoy in paradise as a reward for his sufferings and sacrifices. What hope should I entertain? I know that will be the end, when the rope is tightened round my neck and the rafters moved from under my feet. To use more precise religious terminology, that will be the moment of utter annihilation. My soul will come to nothing. If I take the courage to take the matter in the light of reward, I see that a short life of struggle with no such magnificent end shall itself be my reward. That is all. Without any selfish motive of getting any reward here or in the hereafter, quite disinterestedly have I devoted my life to the cause of freedom. I could not act otherwise. The day shall usher in a new era of liberty, when a large number of men and women, taking courage from the idea of serving humanity and liberating them from sufferings and distress, decide that there is no alternative before them except devoting their lives for this cause. They will wage a war against their oppressors, tyrants or exploiters, not to become kings, or to gain any reward here or in the next birth, or after death in paradise, but to cast off the yoke of slavery. To establish liberty and peace they will tread this perilous, but glorious path. Can the pride they take in their noble cause be called vanity? Who is there rash enough to call it so? To him I say either he is foolish or wicked. Leave such a fellow alone, for he cannot realize the depth, the emotions, the sentiment and the noble feelings that surge in that heart. His heart is dead, a mere lump of flesh, devoid of feelings. His convictions are infirm, his emotions feeble. His selfish interests have made him incapable of seeing the truth. The epithet vanity is always hurled at the strength we get from our convictions. You go against popular feelings. You criticize a hero, a great man who is generally believed to be above criticism. What happens? No one will answer your arguments in a rational way. Rather, you will be considered vainglorious. Its reason is mental insipidity. Merciless criticism and independent thinking are the two necessary traits of revolutionary thinking. As Mahatmaji is great, he is above criticism, as he has risen above all that he says in the field of politics, religion, ethics is right. You agree or not, it is binding upon you to take it as truth. This is not constructive thinking. We do not take a leap forward. We go many steps back. Our forefathers evolved faith in some kind of supreme being. Therefore, one who ventures to challenge the validity of that faith or denies the existence of God shall be called a kafir or a renegade, even if his arguments are so strong that it is impossible to refute them. If his spirit is so strong that he cannot be bowed down by the threats of misfortune that may befall him through the wrath of the Almighty, he shall be decried as vainglorious. Then why should we waste our time in such discussions? This question has come before the people for the first time, hence the necessity and usefulness of such long discussions. As far as the first question is concerned, I think I have made it clear that I did not turn atheist because of vanity. Only my readers, not I, can decide whether my arguments carry weight. If I were a believer, I know in the present circumstances my life would have been easier, the burden lighter. My disbelief in God has turned all the circumstances too harsh, and this situation can deteriorate further. Being a little mystical can give the circumstances a poetic turn. But I need no opiate to meet my end. I am a realistic man. I want to overpower this tendency in me with the help of reason. I am not always successful in such attempts, but it is man's duty to try and make efforts. Success depends on chance and circumstances. Now we come to the second question. If it is not vanity, there ought to be some sound reason for rejection of age-old belief in God. Yes, I come to this question. I think that any man who has some reasoning power always tries to understand the life and people around him with the help of this faculty. Where concrete proofs are lacking, philosophy creeps in. As I have indicated, one of my revolutionary friends used to say that the outcome of human weakness